And Megan, did you ever find the recordings?
To be honest, I haven't even looked.
Okay. Well, I just tried to record this. It says that it's recording now, so we'll see how it works. Okay, so I was trying to figure out what topic to do or what chapter to do. And I kind of went back and forth between two different ones. And then as I started looking over one of them, Monday was Memorial Day. So Memorial Day is like, obviously we all hang out, but the point of it is to honor those that died while serving. And I found that detail to be kind of what was like my confirmation to do Hebrews 11. So Hebrews 11 is kind of somewhat like an honor roll, if you could say, of like highlighting the different people in the Bible that had faith, like very strong faith. And they lived and served their life with basically service to God. So I kind of felt like that related a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So we're doing this chapter. So anyways, like I said, I try to find like some sort of like confirmation, you know, that it's the right one, and I pray about it and stuff. And so anyways, I thought it was really cool. Thought I'd share that. Okay. So yeah, chapter 11, Hebrew chapter 11. And it goes over just how they had to have faith in order to get through their scenarios or situations, and sometimes their entire lives, or the rest of their lives. God always knew what was best for them, and ultimately he still knows now. He hasn't changed. So we should use this chapter as kind of like an encouraging motivation book, just letting it encourage us to live by faith and live a life honoring God. So that's what the chapter is about. And so faith. I know a lot of you use your phone for like the Bible app, but I would like for each of you to read a different version of Hebrews 11, 1 and 2. So I guess you just got up. Kayla,
Yes.
Do you want to read whatever version you have? Tell me what you got.
It says NIV.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but
New International Version.
It's my Mimi's Bible. So, and she actually has chapter 11, 1 underlined, and it says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And then 2 is, this is what the ancients were commanded for.
Okay. And then Rachel, can you do, it's the Passion Translation, it's TPT.
You're in, okay.
It's like, oh, I guess you need to hear me. Now faith brings our hopes into reality and becomes the foundation needed to acquire the things we long for. It is all the evidence required to prove what is still unseen. This testimony of faith is what previous generations were commended for.
Perfect, thank you. And then Megan, can you read it in the Children's Bible? It's ICB.
She's a ghost.
I know, she disappeared. Her video went away too. I think she's pulling it up. She might be on her phone, which might make it harder.
Okay, you ready?
She's on mute. Okay. Faith means being sure of the things we hope for. And faith means knowing that something is real even if we do not see it.
So I've got one more. Victoria, can you read, do you have the Bible app? Do you use can you read the amplified version? AMP.
Lisa, what was that children's version's abbreviation?
ICB.
Okay, now faith is the assurance, in quotations, title, deed, confirmation of things hoped for, divinely guaranteed, and the evidence of things not seen, the conviction of their reality. Faith comprehends as fact what cannot be experienced by the physical senses. For by this kind of faith, the men of old gained divine approval.
Perfect, thank you. So the reason I wanted you to read the different ones, when I was going through this, it's like a lot of times, to be honest, I'll pull up like the children's version because it just dumbs it down a little bit for me and I can understand it really well. But it's kind of, it's interesting to me when I compare the versions. I mean, this is the Bible. I mean, this is what it says faith is, you know, all these things. And so whether it's the assurance, the substance of things that we expect, things that we hope for, and it is the evidence of things that we cannot see. It's the conviction of things unseen. You know, it goes over just different things that, you know, like in the children's version, it says, and faith means knowing that something is real, even though we don't see it. And so then I looked up the dictionary of faith, dictionary version of faith. I don't know. Faith in the dictionary. Anyway, like I feel like the sentence isn't working right. It's complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And so it goes along with this. But anyways, it just kind of wanted to like break that out for all the different definitions, all the different things. Sometimes it's hard to explain. I had done a faith topic for the kids, like as a preschool lesson. And it's a hard one to teach because, I mean, trying to teach a child, you know, what is faith? But it's like, I use the example of an apple, and some of you know this, but I told the kids there's a star in the apple, and they're like, what? And I was like, do you believe me? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, okay, but do I lie to you about anything? Have I ever lied to you about anything? No. Okay, I promise you there is a star in this apple. And they're like, okay. I said, do you believe me? And they're like, yeah. Okay, but you can't see it right now. Like, you don't know, like, do you trust me? Do you believe it? Like, will you go tell someone that there's a star in the apple? And they all said, yes, yeah, you're telling us there's a star in the apple. Okay, there's a star in the apple. They believe me 100%. And so they're all gathered around and like, let's see the star, you know, let's open it up and see the star. And so it, like, that's how I illustrated faith to the kids, because it's something that they couldn't see. And even though it was there, and I did show them later, but they couldn't see it at the beginning. And so like, we went the majority of the day without actually cutting open the apple, but we talked about stars and we talked, you know, but it was that trust that they had to do, even though they couldn't see it. So anyways, like to, you know, always relate to my preschool because it's fun. All right. So, John, I'm going to pull this one up real fast. I did have it bookmarked, but I really need like stickies to like sticky mark all of my different things that I'm doing. Okay, John, here it is, 16:33. And it says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And that part about trouble, I mean, when we go through, when we're talking about faith, so we're all going to have trouble in this world, as it says in John 16:33. We will face trouble, and yet we need to have faith. We need to trust that God is there and that he has already overcome the world. He will be there for us through it all and in the end. So lately I've been I've had something that came up that I wasn't expecting that kind of seemed to throw me off course and kind of like uprooted my normal routine and kind of confused me, made me feel like less control. And really that's kind of how the whole COVID thing is, you know? I mean, all of us we're not in our normal routine, what we were used to for so long. And, you know, there may be something else that you're dealing with. I mean, dealing with all the quarantine stuff, the work schedules may have changed, and, you know, there's so much. But, you know, when we're first hit with that stuff, no matter what it is, and it could be something big like COVID affecting everyone, or it could be something small, something, you know, something that I'm dealing with, it really just affects my immediate, you know, household. But I felt like a stress come over me, and it was kind of overwhelming at first. I felt shaken. I felt like I couldn't breathe well. I felt like I didn't know how to deal with it. I wasn't sure what to do. Like I said, I was confused. And so I wanted to make sure that I was making a good decision. Like Rachel, you had talked about last week, you know, making, like, when you're faced with something, going to the right person. You know, I could pick anyone to go to when I'm frustrated, and I'll get what I want to hear out of them. But you know, it's going to that person that I knew would direct me in the right way. And my advice that I got from that person was breathe, just breathe. And it's like I had to breathe. I needed to breathe, and I needed to stop and remember God is in control. And so once I did that, it really just, I was able to recollect myself and realize God's got this, you know, like it's okay. Like, I'll figure it out one way or another. It'll be fine. I was fine a half an hour ago. I'm going to be fine now. I'm going to be fine a half an hour from now. You know, it didn't make the situation go away, but it made me be able to deal with it a lot better. So, I mean, kind of that, you know, same type of thing with all of us. You know, there's going to be things that come up, things that try to throw us off, and really that's what the devil's there for. You know, he's trying to throw us off course and try to mess with our things. I mean, gosh, like today, you know, I'm like starting to stress. Like, my meeting starts at 7:15, and I got to hurry up and get home, and like now there's bad traffic and I'm going to be late, and I'm like, you know what? I can't get stressed over this. I'm just going to send a message out and be like, hey, I'm running late. No big deal. Maybe you guys can enjoy your dinner or something. I know, Megan, you had eaten dinner late, so, you know, but I didn't want to let it get to me and stress me out. And so, but it's really up to us to stay strong in the Lord and have faith that God is in control, and he does have a plan, and he is working all this out for our good. My mom, Megan, you know, has a sign that it just says, I've got this, signed God. And I love that sign because it's like a constant reminder that whether we feel in control or not, God's got this. And he knows it all. He's in control. So in going into this chapter, like I said, it talks about several different people. And I would like to give each of you a person to read a few scriptures about. And so I don't want to necessarily read the entire thing on all of them, just a couple verses. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that will be perfect. Okay, so if Kayla, you can do Abel. He is in Hebrews 11:4. And then I'm going to assign them out, and then we'll go over them. And then Victoria, if you want to do Enoch, he's in Hebrews 11:5 and 6. Rachel, if you can do Noah, he's Hebrews 11:7. And then Megan, you're going to do Abraham. He's Hebrews 11:17 and 18. And they are in there a little bit more, but like Abram is like a big paragraph, a couple paragraphs. So just those are just the ones that I would like to focus on. Okay, so Kayla, you are first. You've got Abel.
It says, by faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings, and by faith, Abel still speaks even though he is dead.
Perfect. Hold on, I'm sorry, 1 second.
Or you got good ones? Oh, 2 pinks. That's perfect. Red and the pink.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. Yes. So Abel had presented a better offering than Cain, which made God pleased. And then obviously we know that he convinced him and then killed him and was not very good. But, the point of that is it goes back to Genesis chapter 4, and that's where the story of them is. I kind of tried to like cross-reference everything. Like I said, I need more sticky notes. But it talks about how the Lord was very pleased in his offerings. And so anyways, but who is next? I think Victoria, you are next with Enoch.
Yeah.
Okay.
By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him.
Perfect. So I found it really interesting as far as Enoch, and I don't know, I don't know how you guys have read the Bible, but and I'm not saying there's a right way or wrong way. I'm just saying, like, when I am listening, a lot of times I listen because I listen better than I read sometimes, most of the time. It just depends. But anyways, so when I'm listening to it or when I'm reading through it, it's like, have you ever read that record in Genesis where it's like, so when let's see, when Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son, and he lived for 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters, and he lived to be 930, and then he died. So then Seth had, it just goes in the same exact pattern. So he lived 105 years, had other sons and daughters. He was the father of Enosh and had other sons and daughters. He lived a total lifetime span, and then he died. Then it goes to the next one, same exact format. But when it comes to Enoch, it says he had lived 65 years. Then he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God for 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. It's okay. So, okay, bye. So it kind of changed it up a little bit, because in the others, it just said they had lived so many years, they became a father, they lived a total amount of this time, had other sons and daughters, and then they died. And so this one, it says that he lived a partial amount, and then he became a father, and then he walked with God for 300 years. He did have other sons and daughters, and his entire lifespan was 365 years. But then it doesn't say that he lived 365 years and then he died. It says Enoch walked with God, and then he disappeared because God took him away. And just like with Victoria, when you had read that verse, and it talked about, let me pull this back up over here. He was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists. And so it's talking about, the importance of that strong faith. And I feel like it's really dark in here. I'm really, like, the sun's going down.
It is really dark on your screen. There you go.
Okay, that's better. I'm like looking on the screen, I'm like, I'm so dark. Like, all of you guys are nice and bright. But the sun's going down like right in front of the window. So anyways, I thought it was really cool, because he actually had the shortest lifespan out of all of the ones around him. So it was like the other ones around 895 years, 830 years, 840, 905, 912, and then he's 365. So I found it interesting. I'm not really sure what that really means, but I found it interesting.
So did he not, it says that he didn't, did he just ascend into heaven like Jesus did?
So it doesn't say that he ascended into heaven, because it does say that about someone else. I don't remember who it was, but it does say that someone else ascended into heaven. Now, this one, it doesn't. It just said he disappeared because God took him away. And so, the best thing that I could come up with is he lived the shortest amount of time, and then God took him away. So God, essentially, and how I took it, is that he had a strong relationship with God. And it may have been shorter, but it was stronger. It was maybe more authentic. And the relation that I took out of it is, I'd rather live shorter and have a more meaningful life than to live a really long life and waste it all,
Yeah.
Not have purpose, not have meaning, not do anything good. And so that's an interesting point. And I think it's random things that you could maybe think about, maybe research or something, All right. So Noah, I think Rachel, you had that?
Yep, I've got Noah.
Okay.
Just one verse, right? Okay. Excuse me. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith.
Perfect. So as far as that, I do remember the first time that I had heard the fear of the Lord. Should I be afraid? Is that something that I should, how are you in fear of the Lord? And it took me a while, several years, before I figured out that the fear of the Lord is essentially just utmost respect and obedience. And
I think it also depends on and this is going to sound terrible, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, religious background.
Yeah.
You have some preachers that are only will preach fire and brimstone from Revelation, and that will scare the tarnation out of any child. I was terrified. Yeah. God to me just seemed very somebody that would just smite you. That's literally what I heard at such a young age. And then I was raised Baptist and Catholic simultaneously, which is very, very hard to understand as a kid.
Yeah, those two don't mix very well.
No, they don't at all.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I literally, I would go to Catholic Mass at 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings, and then I would go at 9:30. We would go to my dad's, and we would be at a Baptist service until noon.
Oh my goodness.
And because my mom said, I will raise my kids Catholic, and my dad was like, but I want them in church with me. So it was very like, but his preachers were very, very like, they scream and yell, and it was scary. You're just like, this is not like Mom's church. Like, but yeah, so I think that's the fear of the Lord for me was very real at a very young age.
Yep. The Catholic and Baptist are both very good with the fear.
Yeah, I feel like it's taken me my own journey to find that he's a friend and not something to fear.
Yeah.
Melissa, I love that you had her read Noah because I have a message around Noah, and every time I think about it, I think of Rachel.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know I can't swim? That's kind of a lots of water scares
cool
me.
that you picked her to read Noah.
She's like, oh, it's a sign.
Yeah, see all those little signs.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I can only imagine how hard it would be for, how hard it was for Noah to have built that ark when, he knows nothing of, I think, who was it? Pastor Phil, I want to say, had preached a sermon on Noah, and he said that, they had never known rain. And before then, and I don't know, if it actually, I haven't found anywhere that it says that, but I'm sure maybe there's research somewhere, I don't know. But yeah, he said that they had never known rain before, and so he was told, build this ark. And so he's building this ark, and people are like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm building an ark. Well, for what? Well, for my God, that's what he told me to do. But why? Well, because rain's coming. What's rain? I don't know, but I was told to build this ark, so I'm doing it. And so it's like, I can't imagine like the pressure, from the other people. And that kind of made me think about just, really like all of it, like there's pressure all in this world, all around us, every day, every moment, like with things that come up. And so it's kind of cool. Like I said, this is kind of like a motivation chapter to kind of help us think about, even though things come up, even though like people may say things from the outside, it's kind of our inner part that has to fight back with that and stay faithful. So going on just a little bit, it kind of breaks up before I have you read Abraham. And it talks about in Hebrews 11:13 how it says, the Passion Translation says, these heroes all died still clinging to their faith, not even receiving all that had been promised to them, but they saw beyond the horizon the fulfillment of their promises and gladly embraced it from afar. They all live their lives on earth as those who belong to another realm. Kind of interesting to think about, just because like there's so many times where we're in this world, and that's really just our flesh, but it's hard to think that ultimately, yes, we're going there, but it's like a whole different world. And kind of makes you think like you have to take everything, I guess, with like a grain of salt, like, because there's so much better coming. And let's see, 13. This is, what version is this? I don't know what version I have here, but it says all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. So, and they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on the earth. Kind of goes along the same lines, obviously. It's the same scripture, but I questioned that. Like, did any of you question that at all? Like, God, it says that they died still clinging to their faith, not even receiving all that had been promised to them. And I questioned it, and maybe you guys didn't, and that's okay. And we all read things differently. But I questioned about like them having faith all the way to the end. They didn't even receive the promise that God had for them. Did anyone else read it that way or get it that way? You're on mute.
So I kind of read it a little differently. Like, I kind of related it to the whole Ernie situation. Like,
Okay.
I truly felt that he had a longer life and that he had so much more, and that, you know, there's no way we're, you know, God, I'm saying we as in me and God or our team are gonna let Tina be alone. And so I had faith like through it all. I mean, there was a little hiccup where it's at right now, but I mean, throughout pretty much all of it and until the end, until that day that I got the call, I mean, I had full faith. And, you know, there was a time where I did start to question it, but I had to just keep my faith on. And so I kind of think of it that he's passed away, and now I'm like, I feel like it's like mind blown. Like, you start to see some revelations, like, oh, you know, like with this COVID situation, Ernie would have really suffered if he was going through this COVID situation. And I just, you know, you can't see it while you're in there, but after the fact, I feel like, you know, I trusted. Maybe I was pushing God, you know, I was trusting in him a different way, but I, you know, no matter what, trusted his plan. And after the fact, yeah, there was hurt and whatnot, but like it's such a beautiful plan, and it turned out greatly. And you know, they say like in God's timing is perfect and whatnot. So when I read that, I wasn't really confused. I think when you're in the moment you are, but if you kind of step back and see if you can relate it to like a revelation kind of like that, I was like, that's what I thought when I read it. Like, after the fact, you can see some blessings out of it.
Well, I kind of read it as the people, they didn't receive the things that were promised to them, but that, like, who wrote Hebrews? Who wrote Hebrews?
I don't know.
Is that Moses? No. Is this new, old?
Okay, so it says the book of
It's
Hebrews
New
is completely
Testament.
It's
anonymous.
anonymous.
Scholars have proposed Paul, Luke, Barnabas, Apollos, Priscilla, and others are its author.
So, like, Moses, whenever he was bringing the people out of Egypt, it was a land that was promised to them, but he never got to cross into it. He was literally buried before, like, he died before he was able to pass into that land that he had brought everybody, and it was the land that was promised to them. So I think that it's kind of like, just because God is promising you something doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to see it in your generation. It may be the generation after you.
Yeah.
And, you know, my grandparents and their grandparents, they were waiting for Jesus to return. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that that promise is going to come in somebody else's lifetime.
Yep. Yeah, there's a song that me and Caitlin want to work on together and kind of collaborate, but it's and your children's children, and it talks about that down the ripple effect.
Yeah. Stop.
So I also read it a little bit differently. Verse 6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." But then if you look in verse 11, it says, "And by faith even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so on from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore." All these people were still living by faith when they died, but they did not receive the things promised. And you had said, Melissa, in that Passion, the thing that you were reading, it was talking about these men living as if they were set apart from or in a different realm of the world.
Right.
I wonder if these descendants of Sarah and Abraham, if they were faithful, but maybe not living earnestly seeking God and not turning their back completely on the world. Like it says Noah, by his faith, he condemned the world. So maybe these people aren't living quite as earnestly seeking God as the others who are mentioned here.
I agree completely. That actually kind of flows into something I've got later on. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate your input. I love it. So let's go ahead and talk about Abraham real fast. And it doesn't go in, it's a different section than what you read, Victoria. So Megan, you had that, right?
Yep, I got that.
Okay.
Okay, so by faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned."
So, did I have that in there? No. Okay. So, yeah, just like, so God promises Abraham the descendants as many as the stars. So in Genesis 22 is where it talks about the sacrifice of Isaac. And verse 4 and 5 says that he caught sight of the place that God told him about the sacrifice for Isaac. He had two servants with him at the time when they're walking, and he found the place, he's seen it, and he told his servants, "Stay here, and me and Isaac are going up to the mountaintop and we're going to go worship." And I felt like that a little bit when I was reading that. It kind of spoke to me a little bit in regards to maybe things that God's telling us, whether it be in the middle of, a crazy, this was a test for Abraham, and, we are put in test. And this whole COVID thing could be a test, which we've talked about before, being a test of your faith and staying strong and staying in the word and drawing near to him when churches are closed and, things like that. But why would Abraham tell his servants to stay? Do you guys have any input? No?
Maybe he didn't think that, like maybe they were thinking more worldly than worldly.
So at the time, they didn't know anything. He just said, we're gonna go pray and do a sacrifice, or we're gonna go worship, and he had his servants come with him, and then he seen the place. Like Abraham knew, God told him, "Go give your son Isaac as a sacrifice to me, and I'm gonna tell you exactly where to go and what it's gonna look like, and when you see it, you're gonna know." And so he's seen the place, and he told his servants, "Wait here." And he said, "Me and Isaac are going to go up and worship, and we'll be right back." So he didn't even tell them. And so it kind of got me thinking, like, there's little things that God tells us, whether it be something small, go pay for that person's meal, pay for that person's groceries behind you, or the lady's coffee in line. What that small thing, that's that still small voice that, maybe it's doing something. And obviously these are all positive things that I'm talking about, because I don't think I could listen to God telling me to go kill my child. But, he didn't want, I felt like he didn't want the worldly part, like Megan, you're saying, of those servants saying, "You're a little crazy, you're out of your mind, thinking that your God wants you to kill your own son." And they would try to talk him out of it and tell him he's crazy, question him. and maybe get Abraham to question his own faith. But I feel like he made that right decision on, I know that they're going to question me. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to try to talk me out of it. They may even get me to question my faith. And whether he knew what he was doing at the time or not, I just find that it's pretty cool when you think about it, and pretty amazing the faith that Abraham had. I mean, like I said, I don't think I could take my own child up to an altar and be ready to do that. But in verse 19, right after what Megan read, do you still have that up, Megan? Can you read 19?
Yeah, hold on. How do you think that son felt?
So the son, I don't think really knew what was happening, because not until the last minute, because in Genesis chapter 22, it says, so they came to the place, and so Abraham looked up, he's seen it. Hold on, go back just a little bit.
So when they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out and so what do you think was going through his mind at that second?
Yeah, I bet it was crazy. Because at first I know he said, God will provide the sacrifice, because his son questioned him, where's the sacrifice? And he said, God will provide it. And so he gets him to the point, but then once he's on there, I mean, what are you doing, Dad?
And do we know how old Isaac was? Because Abraham's very old. So the fact that like you were now trying to essentially hog tie a teenager at 100, I mean, like, I don't know that anybody's. If I were Isaac, I wouldn't really go willingly.
I know, this is why I love like that show, The Chosen, because like it gives more background. Not saying it's true, but it kind of tries to picture more of a background, stuff like this. Like that's the stuff I wonder, like what happened in between the lines here.
Right.
But then I'm not gonna lie, the second I said that, I was like, oh my gosh, Megan, shut your mouth. Like that's what people do. They gossip and they talk. Like that's the world. Like right after I said that, I was like,
but it's something that like I don't think that we're just supposed to read it and not think about it. I mean, it's very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's totally okay to think about it and talk about it, because I mean, this is the right thing that God wants us to think about and talk about. So if we're really diving in and thinking about it and thinking about this story and talking about it and wondering what in the world was this child thinking, we're to the point where we're understanding it. It's not just
Did his child run away after this? Because I would have. Did his child run away after this? Because I would have. Like, yeah, I know, I was there. I heard God say no, but you were going to do that.
Thankfulness, But I thought it was kind of cool. And so in verse 19, did you want to read that, Megan?
Sure.
Yes, you can.
Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death.
So I thought that was kind of cool, because to me, that made me think that, like, God promised him offspring, descendants as many as the stars and as much as the shore. And through what he was doing, he ultimately had that faith. Like, God made the promise, it's going to come through. And it's like, I think somebody else had said, it might have been Pastor David that said, like, you order Amazon, you order your package, order placed, and you don't think about it because you just know that it's coming. And it's got a guaranteed delivery date, and and it's kind of like that. Like with the promises, I think of like he knew that God promised this. Like, he trusted it 100%, did not question it at all, knew that God was going to do this. So if he says sacrifice your only son, well, he said that I'm going to have offspring, and he said that it was going to come from Isaac. So I know that I have to trust him completely no matter what I do. Like, he is God. Like, he will do anything. So if I kill him, he's just going to bring him back from the dead. Like, no big deal. And it's just crazy, like, to think about that, like how much faith he had, like no matter what, like he's going to make good on his promise.
I think that God also knew that if he did something to Isaac, Sarah would kill him.
Probably. But so anyways, it made me realize that that really God is so much bigger than all of us. And going back to that question that I questioned, that how can they have faith and not end up receiving the promise, and how it carries on really for the generations. And he promised descendants as many as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. Like, there's no way for that to possibly happen in someone's lifetime, even if they're living to 900 years old. You know, I mean, you can't have that many. So it's something that definitely had to happen over a long period of time. So that kind of helped me understand that term just a little bit more. So Moses, I just wanted to touch on him. So it talks about him in verse 24 through 27. Basically, he refused to be treated and categorized with the royalty to the point of killing an Egyptian in order to save a Hebrew man. This obviously made the Pharaoh very angry, and many people turned against him. But he stayed faithful to God through many trials, all the 10 plagues, the people constantly questioning him. Can you imagine the faith that Moses had to have with leading all of the people? I can't imagine that it would be easy in any way. I mean, when they're, walking and are starving and hungry, and he's just like, well, God's gonna provide, like we'll be fine. And then when he led them into the desert, and they were that was kind of like where I'm at now, is like where God started hardening the Pharaoh's heart, and how they knew that he was coming after them. And so the people were all like very angry at Moses, saying like, we were better off we should have just stayed there. And if we would have just stayed there and served the Egyptians, and that would have been better than us just dying out here in the desert. I mean, they're very angry and upset with him. And so I feel like that kind of is similar to the things that we deal with in life. Maybe kind of blaming others for our own decisions, even, blaming one another, or blaming someone else for a situation that we're in. I mean, they chose to leave. They could have said, nope, I'm not coming with you. I mean, he wanted to lead the people out, but I mean, ultimately they had their choice, right? They could have said, no, I'm not coming with you. But they turned and were upset at him. And so in all of that, Moses obviously said, don't fear, stand firm, and see the victory of the Lord that he will provide for you today. Let's see, this is...
TV's not there.
I'm in... One second.
Well, she's singing the song.
2:14. Well, that's not the right verse. I wrote it down wrong. I don't know what it was. Okay. So basically what I was trying to get here is, I'm in Exodus, and oh, here it is. I'm in 14:15. I was in the wrong thing. I wrote it right somewhere else. And it talks about how he was very firm. When the people were complaining and arguing and stuff, he said, don't fear. Stand firm. The victory of the Lord. He's going to provide for you. We'll be fine. And then the very next verse, it's the Lord talking to Moses, and he says, why did you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. And for you, pick up your staff and extend it to the sea. And to me, that really was, that's totally like how I feel, like all of that in me. Like I question things and then I cry out to God, and then I find a way through God to become stabilized again. And that's like exactly what they did here. You know, he really, he cried out to God, but he did it obviously away from all the people, because he's got to stand firm, he's got to be strong, and right in front of these people. And I feel like that's really, as a mom, that's what we all do, right? Like things are going crazy and we got to hold it together. We got to stand strong. We've got to deal with the issues. We've got to deal with our crazy kids. We got to deal with all the stress and the work and the food and everything that we've got. And maybe inside, you know, we question things. Maybe it's deep down, maybe it's circling up top, every thought that's going through our head. But moms are good for, you know, making our kids and our families stay together, like through it all, and calming us down. It kind of reminded me of Rachel saying the comforter last week, right? That's mom, right? So, you know, we do our best. And so Moses stayed strong in front of the people. And in return, he got, you know, that peace and that encouragement. And I feel that we can do the same. You know, if we start having troubles with something, we go to God, cry out, and he'll help give us our encouragement, help us find a way, make a way through it when we're feeling hopeless or feeling stressed or anything. And it's okay, because it's normal. So I'm almost done. I know we're kind of going at like an hour. I know we started late. So Hebrews 11:32, it starts talking about the unmentioned heroes in the Bible. So like it says that conquered kingdoms, shut the mouths of lions, escaped the edge of the sword. And then in verse 35, it says others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection. So I thought about that one. I kind of made me stop and think about it. And I felt like there was almost like a revelation when I was reading this. And it kind of made me like excited. And then like, as I'm like writing things down and I'm thinking about this and I'm reading it and I'm like, I really like getting excited, and I'm going to explain what it is real fast. But then I got like chills everywhere. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, thank you, Jesus. Like I got something good. I know this is good. So, and Victoria, this is where it flows into kind of what you were saying earlier. But it became really clear to me that in that verse where it says others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain a better resurrection, and how I took that and reading everything and the things that I've been dealing with, they, you know, some of them were put into situations that they did not choose, and yet God had mercy. He protected them, delivered them from it. But others were being faced with an issue and had the opportunity to choose to be held captive by something or someone. And it says, in order to gain a better resurrection. So why would someone choose to be held captive? Why would we want to stay in a state that was troublesome? And those are kind of the questions that I kind of circulated when I was going through this, and kind of thought about and sat there and pondered it for a little bit. And in verse 37, it says, they were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by a sword. And so I've got a footnote that says that in some early manuscripts, it said that stoned meant that they were put to the test. And I felt like this was really God telling me this was the meaning. So the sawed in two meant that they have felt pulled apart. And I feel like that's really often how I feel. And I'm sure a lot of us feel that. I know in my heart, God will get me through this. So take any situation, a situation that you may be dealing with, a situation that you've maybe recently, I mean, all of us are always dealing with something, right? So whether it's big or small, it's like a split part. And there's the part that, you know, my heart says, Faith, and God's got this, and we're going to be fine, and I don't have to stress or worry about anything. And then there's like another little part that is like the reality, like the down to earth, like the flesh, the world. And that's like, well, if this happens, and how do I handle this when this comes up? And like, you know, thinking about all the different possibilities. And so really that's two sides, and it's like a flesh side and a spiritual side. It's the worldly side and the wordly side, like Megan has said many times before. I don't even know if she's still
Sorry, I love that saying. Yeah,
okay.
I'm holding the phone in my bra, so I didn't think you guys wanted to see
okay.
that.
Nope, that's good. Thank you. So, yeah, so it was like all that came through to me. I mean, when it says, it said, they were stoned, they were sawed in two, they were put to death by a sword. But it really just, it came, like I said, it became so clear to me. And they chose to be sawed in two. Like, could these people, like Victoria was saying earlier, could they have maybe really truly found a way to split that maybe they found like a way to do that so that they didn't have like the fleshy worldly part in them, that they were completely spiritual and wordly? I mean, is that possible? Like, it was kind of crazy for me, you know, just to think about that and have that kind of like revelation that, I mean, someone taking your own son to sacrifice them up on an altar, like, you've got to have such strong faith. Like, you can't let the world, you know, even in a little bit, like not even like 1%, because that's gonna, you know, just make it all go away, because that 1% will overtake. So anyways, but yeah, I mean, in Abraham's situation, he knew that through Isaac, his offspring would come. He was tested. It was clearly a test. It says that it's a test in the Bible. And he knew that God would make good on his promise, even though he didn't understand it at the time. He just simply had ultimate faith. So anyways, that was the part that I absolutely thought was just, it was super cool, and kind of think, you know, to think about and just kind of get that revelation on. And I don't know, kind of gave me like a little bit of hope that, you know, it is possible to have that strong faith. It's like nowadays, like, it's hard, you know, it's hard to sometimes have faith through everything. And, you know, I mean, really, it seems almost impossible. But, you know, we're always bettering ourselves. So, let's see what else I got. Yeah, Hebrews 11:40, I think this is the end of the chapter. It says, "For God has provided something better for us, so that they would be made perfect together with us." And, I mean, it just really, you know, everything that God does, I mean, we're going to have trials, we're going to have things that we go through. I mean, all these people in the Bible, they had issues too. I mean, I know there's talk that Noah was a drunk, and Abraham lied, and Jacob was had cowardly moments. And you know, if all those things were in this chapter, obviously it would kind of put off a different vibe. But I think that's just it. You know, we all have flaws, and we all have sin, and Jesus died for all of us, and has taken away all of the shame for our sins, and has forgiven us, just as all these people are. So this chapter, obviously, it's all over the faith, and how their overall lives, they lived by faith. And so kind of as an ending, I thought at your memorial service for your death, sorry to talk about this, hopefully
that took a hard left.
What would people say? You know, like, what would they bring up? How you lied when you were 5, or how maybe you had a little white lie when you were 30, or will they talk about a regret that you had, or how you failed at something? I mean, likely no, they're not going to, and hopefully, right? But it's,
well, if my brother speaks, he will tell the story about how when we were younger and we had Guess Who back in the old days, you had to like put little characters in the sleeves. Well, I am OCD, so I set them up so that way they're all in order, alphabetical order and everything. Well, then I realized that, the first one that you put down is yours. And so I always knew who his was. And so he still does not let me live that down 30 years later. So I don't know. At my memorial, he might bring that up.
But overall, it should be a funny, uplifting, light story, right?
Yes. Yeah, but you just mentioned that, and I'm like, well, my brother. He won't let me live that down. I will not ever play that game again.
That's funny. But, I mean, it's all focused, really, overall on the good things. And so it just kind of got me thinking, what do you want said at your funeral? And are you living life that way to have it said about you? So it kind of made me think a little bit that, someone that I want to be known as is really strong and fearless for the most part, but I want to have those strong qualities in faith, and I want to be an encouragement to others. And so when we're in the middle of a struggle or a tough situation, obviously it can sometimes be hard to stay strong in faith, but just when we're in the moment, take a step back, breathe, kind of like my good advice that I had. Sometimes we have to push ourselves into God's word. Something that I've heard over and over again is just get in the word, just start reading the Bible, and I don't know why, like the things that people tell me that are like good, strong Christians, sometimes I feel like I not question it, but like if I'm struggling with something, I don't just open up my Bible and start reading. Like, what am I supposed to read? Like, it's a ginormous book, and how do I know what to read? And then I'm reading something, and it's like, it makes no sense because I'm too busy thinking about other things. And yet, when I found this, and I'm starting to read it, and I know that at one point in here, like I said, I got to that point when I'm reading in Hebrews, and I got like excited. I was referencing it back, and it really just like I was excited, and I didn't want to stop. And then I had kids come, and I had to stop, but I really didn't want to. And so obviously I stopped, and so I came back the next morning. I've been waking up at 6, and so I came back the next morning, and I'm like, okay, so fresh new day, and I'm gonna sit down and get into this, right? And I'm gonna get the same excited feeling that I had yesterday. And I didn't start off with that, like I'm reading, and I'm like, all right, what was my thought process yesterday? Where was I at? What situation was I in? Like, okay, I gotta, type this part up, and it's like I had to force myself to get back into it and start reading, start like refreshing my mind. And it wasn't until I was about halfway done with all of it that I really started getting back into it. And then of course it's like time to go again. And but I feel like that's what we do. Like, we're moms, we get distracted a lot, and we get pulled away from things a lot, but really making the time for God. Like I said, I'm getting up at 6 a.m. now, and it's been great because I've been making time to really just start reading. And I may not feel it at first, but it's kind of like working out. Like, nobody's excited to start working out, but once you start doing it and you get in a routine, then you start feeling better. And then, if you're like me, you always start slacking. And and then, some more time goes on, and you're like, I really need to do that again. But when you do, you feel good about yourself. And I feel like that's the same way that, the last several mornings I've been up and I've been reading, and it's like when I first wake up, my alarm goes off. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so tired still. Like, I don't want to get up. Force myself to get up, come sit down, open my Bible, start reading. I feel nothing at first. The words all seem like blah, but I keep pushing through, and then I start getting good things out of it. So my encouragement with you is have that faith and even as moms, you know, getting pulled away 50,000 times. But yeah.
I feel like my mom's faith has gotten stronger as the children have left. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like not stronger. That's not the right word. I feel like her habits, her daily habits have,
Right.
and I mean, so it's
There's
just
no
seasons
kids
of
to
life.
interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a season of life, and we're doing the best we can.
Right.
So,
Yep. It definitely has encouraged me though, like when I start getting into it, and it's, I mean, like I said, it's like with working out, it's like with eating healthy, it's like all those things that you should do, but you kind of,
that you know are good for you.
you know, yeah, because it is, you know, and it's good for you, and you get good things out of it. But yeah, it's hard as a mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that song that even when you don't feel it, you're working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. You know that song.
Yeah.
Waymaker.
So, but yeah, it's like that's a constant reminder too. I love that song because it really is. He is working, and he's working in all of this. And I know several times Addison has complained about not being able to go to the park, not being able to see certain friends, and not being able to do certain things. And I try to always remind her, like, she knows, and she'll tell me the devil created the virus, but God will find a way to make all this better. And I used an example when she was sick for a few days. She had a fever and was just not feeling well. And Rachel, I think that was when Shar was still at home. And
Yeah.
so she was not feeling well at all. And I obviously canceled all my daycare kids and stuff. And she goes, I don't like being sick, Mommy. Like, why did I get sick? And she goes, that devil made me sick. And I said, you're right, honey. And I said, but, you know, God will make something good come out of it. And I didn't say anything more really. And she's like, okay, whatever. You know, didn't really say much else. But later that day, which was really cool, one of the daycare kids had stopped and dropped off a gift bag that had just like a couple dollar store tree, whatever, toys in it. And so I think she had like just gotten up to like go to the bathroom or something. And so she was like feeling horrible. And then Caitlin comes in. She goes, oh, this was just dropped at the front door. And she got so excited over a couple little dollar store toys, and she was like, oh my goodness. And you know, so the daycare kid that brought it, she was so excited and she was so happy. And I said, see, God really does work things out for good. Like he'll, you know, because of that, he felt bad and he brought you something, and now you have a new cool toy and you can play with them next time when you're, you know, feeling better or whatever. And so she will retell that story about how when the devil made her sick and how God made something good come out of it. And so it's just pretty cool because, you know, I've told her, like with the COVID thing, you know, I mean, simple things like the sea turtles that were born, and, you know, like that wouldn't have happened if there was tons of people on the beaches.
Nope.
And, you know, there's lots of different things that have happened because of it. And it's just kind of cool to try to, you know, have the little ones start to understand.
Our world just needed to rest.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was actually thinking about you this morning, or like whenever I was at work, Melissa, and I was like, you used to run like 7 days a week.
Yeah.
100 miles an hour. I was like, oh my gosh, like 100 miles an hour in 8 different directions, 7 days a week.
Yeah. And then it's like, what do I do with myself? I'm still in the running mode and I can't run nowhere.
Oh my gosh, did you ever hear about her Wednesday schedule? Just her Wednesday schedule.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yep, that was pretty crazy. It was usually as soon as the last daycare kid left, Addison got on the bus. I ran to Walmart and grabbed my pickup order, come back here, grab food, take the kids all the way to Sunset Hills and drop them off. I come back so I can hurry and get Addison off the Awana's bus, hurry up and go back to Sunset Hills and pick them up, and then come all the way back home. And it's like 9:15.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It's just Wednesday. That's just a Wednesday.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. one
Yeah.
person trying to do it all. I had like the bus driver like on backup. You've got my cell phone number, and if I'm not back in time, just hold on. So he'd take all the other kids home and then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's crazy. That's what we do.
I saw something that said, like, since we've had to stop everything, we should be mindful of what is worth our time going back in.
Yeah, that's
Like,
Yes.
like we
Yeah.
don't have to go 1,000 miles an hour just because we need to be mindful. We were forced to be still, and we need to be mindful of what we decide to do with our time moving forward. Which that may be dictated for us with like the little like slow, like, okay, now you can do this.
right.
Now you can do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I refuse to grocery shop because I cannot do one-way shopping. So I don't know how to do it. It doesn't work for me, and I always find myself going down the wrong aisle, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. This is not, I'll just pull my cart backwards. Like,
Yeah, I had gone with Caitlin, and I was like, she goes, Mom, you're not supposed to go down this aisle. I'm like, why not? And she's like, because there's things on the floor that says you can't go this way. And I was like, oh, we'll just go backwards.
it's who, I mean, I said, how am I supposed to see that little bitty tiny circle on the floor? Whenever I walk into Walmart, I've got one thing on my mind. I got to fill this cart and get the heck out of here. Like, I'm not looking at the floor. I don't think that my eyes ever even bounce off the floor. Like, and I was just like, you're going to need a bigger sign than that for me. I'm sorry. Like, that's just not going to work. I just thought everyone was being polite and giving me extra room. really, I'm probably the meme on every single, like, doesn't know how to one-way shop. I'm a person of Walmart now.
Oh.
But I gotta get Shar in the tub.
Alrighty.
So
Alrighty.
Okay.
See ya. Thanks for the message, Lissa. You did amazing.
Yep.
oh, here, hold on, you can tell him.
You talked to us about faith and death.
Faith and what?
Death.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
The multi-purpose.
No, it was good. It got us talking really good conversations too.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I felt it was a really good message. And then, yeah, you know, the traffic kind of confirmed that for me. I feel like anytime that there's like a struggle or something that comes up that tries to like hinder it,
Yeah.
there's something good coming.
Okay.
Listen, my chickens are big.
Hey,
All right.
Addie.
Say hi, bye. Look, there's Kayla.
Hi.
Is he Addison?
She's got
Me, come and visit my mountain.
You miss Kayla, huh? Mm-hmm.
I miss you too, sweetie. Hopefully in
Good
July.
night.
All right. Good night, y'all.
All right, bye.
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 Bye, Addison.
Say bye, Addison.
Bye, Addison.
I think they're savvy on that screen, probably. We can't see you.
I know. We're in a dark room.
Okay. Well, she's there. She's just hiding in the dark. Say bye. You're a poopy head.
Say
Okay.
have sweet dreams.
Have sweet dreams.
And we love you.
Sweet dreams.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.